Spoilers, spoilers.
Yes. I'm trying to, oh my God. Wait. Not sure.
Cool. We've got 39. I think we can start.
So hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar devoted to SpecFlow extension for Visual Studio 2022. Jordan Weston, our user journey support engineer, and Gaspar Nage, member of SpecFlow, founding member of SpecFlow, are going to host this session. Shandor Tardi contributed a lot to this extension, so he also participates today and will also answer your question at the end of the session. My name is Katerina Ganzichuk. I'm social media content and community manager at SpecFlow. Okay. So about this session. If you have any question, please use our Q&A tool for questions. Upvote questions that are interesting for you. All the questions will be answered in the dedicated Q&A session at the end. All attendees will receive a recording and a certificate after this session. And let's get started. So Jordan, you can overtake it.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. And just while I'm doing that, anyone that asks about the recording in the chat gets -5 points. Cool. Let me know when you can see.
Yes.
All good? Good. Cool. So welcome everyone. Glad you could attend. So as Katerina mentioned, we're going to be talking today about our new extension for Visual Studio 2022. So in conjunction with the release of the IDE on the 8th of November, along with .NET 6, we've obviously prepared this extension. It's been published, I think, for a couple of weeks now. So some of you may have already started to use it, which would be good. So the first thing I want to show is, and encourage you to, if you haven't already, go and take a look at Visual Studio 2022. Obviously, it's still in preview at the moment, but the launch, I believe, is on the 8th or the 9th of November. So the build is quite stable and should be fine for you to at least have a play around with. So that's the first thing. And Katerina, if you could provide the link if you have it handy, thank you. And the second thing is, obviously, we all love ReSharper. So it's worth mentioning that ReSharper also supports the preview version of Visual Studio 2022. Let me just move this out of the way. Thank you. Good. Okay. And also provide the link for this one, Katerina, if you don't mind. So yeah, that's that good stuff out of the way. So the next thing I want to talk about is if you're looking to get the extension, you can come to Visual Studio Marketplace, and if you search for SpecFlow, you'll see not only our old plugins, but you'll see this one here, and of course it's free, so anyone is welcome to come and install it and try it out and see what you think. Cool. So let's get into things here. So I've got Visual Studio 2022 installed here. So let's launch this. This is how you need to get started. So for now, I'm just going to continue without the code because I want to install the extension to the IDE. That can be done from inside of here or from the marketplace. So once this is loaded, we need to go to extensions and then manage extensions. Then you can search for SpecFlow. And then you see this SpecFlow for Visual Studio 2022. So we want to download this. And once you've downloaded it, you do actually need to restart the IDE for the installer to run. So can we launch the first poll, please? Or the only poll, Katerina? Yes. While this whizzes away. Cool, thank you. So a couple of questions. Sorry, Katerina. Yeah. So are you using Visual Studio 2022? And the second question is, have you used the SpecFlow extension already? I'd be interested to know. And it looks like a few of you have, which is great. It's probably worth mentioning if you have any feedback at all, then we're always happy to receive feedback and make improvements for everyone.
Yeah, and it's also very, so probably you have seen when Jordan was installing it that the Visual Studio extension gallery has some such kind of voting and feedback system. So right now we already have got two feedback. But if you try out this new extension and you are happy with that, then make sure that you are just publishing your own review on that, because that helps also others.
Cool. So it looks like actually there's more than I expected to have used both the extension and Visual Studio 2022. So that's good. And actually maybe most of you have seen these features, but maybe we'll cover some stuff that you haven't seen. Cool. So let's stop sharing those and we'll go back to my screen. Presumably you can still see, right? I haven't messed anything up with the share. So we can see that the extension's installed, so we can just close this little window here and we can relaunch Visual Studio. And now we should get all the goodness that you can expect from the extension. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new project, of course, so we can show off some features. And just like the previous extension, we have the project template that you can use to quickly create a new SpecFlow project. So I'm just going to quickly call this SpecFlow extension demo, and we'll click create. And you should also, if you've used the previous extension, be familiar with this page. The only difference now, of course, is we have this this .NET 6 dropdown, which is default, and this XUnit framework. And you obviously can change these as you could previously to your target framework, and also the same for the test framework. And also still this tick box for the Fluent Assertions library because we like it a lot. So let's go ahead and create this project. So for anyone that doesn't know, I guess the project template will install or have all the dependencies for your project already in the template. So it means you should be able to just get started with using SpecFlow, which is nice. And this should feel very familiar to anyone that's used the extension previously. We have these template folders and one feature file and one default step definition. So before we talk about anything that's new in this extension, I'll just invite Gaspar to have a little say. So over to you, Gaspar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. When we were preparing for this demo, we were thinking about that maybe we should go through the kind of what's new section in this new Visual Studio extension, which is, I mean, normally this is a boring thing, right? Because people just have a new Visual Studio and they just want to work just before. So normally such kind of demonstrations are not that exciting, but at least this one or this time the thing is a little bit more tricky or a little bit more exciting, definitely for us, but hopefully for you as well, because actually, we are making a big step in the so-called history of SpecFlow. Probably you know that SpecFlow has started in 2009, so almost 12 years or more than 12 years ago. And basically right from the beginning, we had a Visual Studio extension. And this Visual Studio extension has been grown and we extended it, added new features on it. But after some time, it turned out that basically the code base that we have is harder and harder to work with. So we started to have a need to make some sort of rewrite and basically make the extension which is better matching to the newest infrastructures that are available in Visual Studio, but also what is related to SpecFlow and the Gherkin format as well. And basically this is a slow process, as you can see. So if there is a Visual Studio extension that is used by several tens of thousands of people, it's not so easy to just replace it with something brand new. And actually this change, this rewrite process has started, at least for me, 3 years ago. So I basically made an open source project called DevRoom, which was a kind of prototype or try out how this new extension could work. And now, by today, it's actually grown to mature enough so that whenever we started to think about that, okay, how we should support Visual Studio 2022, then we thought that, okay, let's use the DevRoom code base and let's basically, based on that, provide a nice Visual Studio extension for the new platform. So this means that many features and many things are similar to what you have seen, but the implementation and the infrastructure behind that is completely replaced. And this allows us to also show you some cool new features that were not possible or not so easily possible in the old extension. So that's the kind of intro that probably makes sense to mention before we go into the individual new features. it's yours.
Cool. Thanks very much, Gaspar. Cool. So let's talk about what's new then. So the first thing we will do is we'll open this feature file, and with any luck, this is a fresh install of the extension. So we should see. There we go. Good. It didn't fail me. Perfect. So you see this pop-up. So this pop-up will appear if the extension is freshly installed or there's been a change. So if it detects a version change, you'll see this, and you'll also see, I guess, a change log, right, Gaspar, of what came in the previous change in the update. So this is new, and I think it's super cool because it means you get to know immediately exactly what's new and the new features you can use, which is super cool. So let me just close this down. Cool. So this leads me nicely onto the next section, which is you now have to, and this is caveated, you now have to compile the project for your steps to bind. Now this is different to the Visual Studio 2019 extension, and we're looking to change this because before you didn't have to do this, but you'll now notice since I've done the build that we get these parameters in a different color, so the steps are bound. But I would like to invite Gaspar to talk again about why this is, and going forward, we're looking to try and change this back to the way it was before. So Gaspar, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, definitely this is the most challenging thing to explain, but basically many of you probably, especially if you have used SpecFlow or the previous Visual Studio extension with a larger project or with a massive Git development environment where you are switching to feature branches and back and forth, probably you have noticed that even though that on that Visual Studio extension, the extension itself, we're trying to understand your step definitions and understand your structure of your automation live. So whenever you saved the step definition file, we immediately realized that there is a new step definition on that. So that was the good part of that, but unfortunately, because of some technical and other difficulties, this matching was not always correct. So sometimes you had to go ahead and change some file in the cache folder. Sometimes, especially if you were using step definitions from external assemblies, the things were not always that stable, and there were also performance problems as well. So whenever we started with the new Visual Studio extension, we thought that the core concept was that to not try to parse your C# file on the fly, because C# is anyway evolving, newer and newer structures are appearing there. That's pretty risky. But just take your compiled assembly and basically get out the step definitions from the compiled assembly, just like SpecFlow does. Now the benefit of that whatever based on that the extension is recognizing as a step definition, you can be sure that SpecFlow, whenever it will be running, will recognize it as a step definition as well. So basically the coloring, the matching information of the steps are working exactly the same way how you would use them during that test execution. So it's a high level of consistency, but unfortunately there is a small price for that. And the small price, as Jordan was mentioning, that you have to compile your assembly. In the beginning, this might be a little bit inconvenient, especially if you haven't got used to that. But it's not that hard. I've practiced this on many people have practiced that already, and it's easier to. So it's not as hard as it seems for the first look. And in addition to that, actually, what we want to do in long term, and we are somewhere at the first step of that even though that you need to do a compilation to be able to get a fresh and perfect result of your step definitions, if you will just make some smaller changes, like defining a new step or something like that, then those kind of smaller changes will be still recognized by the extension. So you will not need to really recompile your solution every time. Right now, you kind of need to, but we are working on that to basically make that a little bit easier. So that's, I think, the most tricky part that we need to explain. And obviously, we are also interested in your feedback about that one as well, whenever you tried it out first. But that was a kind of decision that we have to make, whether we are choosing the more consistent and more stable solution, which also works with larger and more complex SpecFlow projects, but with this little inconvenience and not the one which was working with demo projects quite nicely, but was causing problems with bigger ones.
Cool, thanks for that summary, Gaspar. And I think the key part of that is fear not. We're looking at a solution to try and make this better, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. As Gaspar mentioned, there is actually a lot of benefits to doing it this way in terms of stability and actually getting it to work more of the time, I guess, is the outcome of these technical changes. So fear not. So moving on, the next thing I'd like to highlight is, and I quite like this, even though it's a small change, is the I guess the syntax colors or the highlighting. So the parameters used to show gray, right? I've already forgotten since using the new one, but they used to show gray, right, Gaspar? You're on mute.
Yeah, I think so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I actually think that the contrast here is much more obvious, and it stands out at you more, which is nice to see. You can't just skip over some stuff.
And I think that my favorite change here is that so far the text were using italic, and with some fonts the italic, some of the letters were very badly readable, and now in our concept, all the important text like text and the steps of the text of the scenarios are always using the normal font, and so that we can avoid such kind of problems.
Cool, thank you. Good. So moving on to the next feature is the rule keyword. So you can see rule is now a thing, which is really cool. So Gaspar, please tell us why this is so cool.
It seems to be a very small thing. So the rule keyword technically is nothing else, basically just a grouping keyword for scenarios. So if you are declaring a rule, nothing will change from the automation perspective. So definitely the rule keyword is very important for documentation purposes. So if you are making a rule keyword, basically all of the scenarios that are beneath that until the next rule keyword are basically belonging to that logical rule. But what is this rule? I think that's the interesting thing. And if you haven't heard about this concept, I really encourage you to check out in the web. We also have some content in the SpecFlow website, and because there is a lot behind that. But to make it short or to make it simple, basically the thing that you might have observed that especially if you have a complex project, you have larger feature files with, let's say, 10 scenarios or even 8 scenarios in there. Actually, scenarios are providing a concrete illustration for the requirement. So it's just showing that how the application is behaving in that particular context. However, just by looking at those illustrations, it's not always as easy to see that, okay, I see that this is how it works, but what did I want to do with that? So what was the requirement that I wanted to illustrate with that? What was the business rule that I wanted to highlight with that? Or what was the acceptance criteria that I actually have proven by creating that scenarios? And the rule keyword can be used to document that. So basically, if you are using acceptance criteria, so you have a nice set of conditions that has to be satisfied by your user story, then you can use the rule keyword to declare or document those acceptance criteria. Or if you just want to basically group the scenarios based on the particular business rules or requirements that they are illustrating or they are belonging to, that's a great tool for that. And again, the rule keyword is just the first step. The next thing will be, and this is also will come very soon or hopefully very soon to SpecFlow, you will be able to put tags also on the rule keyword. Currently, that's not yet supported, but that is going to be the next thing. And then you can also use to even better structure your code and provide some automation logic for the rules as well.
Cool, thanks, Gaspar, for the context. Good. So the next feature I'd like to highlight is renaming steps. So we can see these are bound, and we have our boilerplate code here with our steps that the feature is bound to. So if we right click on any of these steps at all, we see this this rename step. You can press Control plus B and then R for the shortcut, or you can right click and go to rename step. And you'll immediately see that we jump to the step definition file, and we can simply just rename this. So let me just, this is renamed, and click rename, and you can see that the regular expression has changed. And also if we flick back to the feature, you can see that this also has been renamed. So that's super useful, because in my previous role in another life, this was very irritating in live projects when doing any sort of renaming. So super cool. And it also works backwards. So you can do it also from the step definition file itself. So this is renamed again, and we flick back to the feature, and you can see that it's renamed again, and everything's happy and everything still builds fine, and we can move on to more important issues. It's worth mentioning that if we just flick back to the step definition, you can see that the method name hasn't changed. So if you're like to keep your method names in line with the step name itself, then you will have to do this manually. But that's just a side note.
And this is something that we are still would like to move on with. So we have this first version of the rename, and probably at some point it will be improved in a way that it will also rename the method as well.
And something else that I realized yesterday when I was playing around with the extension is that, and I don't know if this, I'm assuming this was by design, Gaspar, but I noticed that when you added scope to the, say you've got two step definitions and one is scoped to a particular feature file by tag, then it will only change the scoped step definition. Are you following me?
Yes, I do. I don't know now whether it's by design now or it just happens like that.
But yes, that's also very cool, because it means that if you're renaming steps in a file that's scoped to a particular step definition, then you're not changing the names of other steps that might share the same name, yep. which is awesome, actually.
Yeah. So normally the Visual Studio extension is honoring the scope keyword or the scope attribute. So also the jumping is also working to the properly scoped step definition. And this is why, and since this is using the same infrastructure, that's why it's working.
Cool. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is, for example, if we don't have a given here and we have step definition here, this also works. So we'll go back and rename the step. One thing I observed yesterday is that if you do it from the feature file, it will not, it will only update one of them. So say, for example, we have this given, given this is renamed again. If I say, for example, have a, and obviously this isn't appropriate at all, but just to showcase this. So if we build this to show that it's bound, there we go. Cool. It's bound. It's bound. So if we rename this one, this is renamed again. You can see that the binding method has changed, but if we flick back here, then the given has not. So just be aware of this. And likewise, if we just quickly update this, so if you do it from the other way, I'll just need to build this again. If we do this from the other way, it will actually tell us, as far as I remember, rename. Yes, so you can see here which one we want to rename, basically. So
yeah, that's anyway, I would encourage everyone not to use the step definition attributes. It's very rare that a given step makes sense other than semantically they are totally different. So, and
it's probably worth mentioning as well, if you do have I know Gaspar's avoiding or not advising this, but if you have like another attribute on the same step, say you've got a given and a when, for example.
I think there is nothing wrong with that, so that's absolutely fine. So
okay.
Yeah, and then it works because then it will only rename the right.
Exactly. So it will rename correctly and in all places, just as it would do if it was a normal one. So that's renaming, which I think is super cool. The next thing to talk about is the item templates. So previously, so for example, if I right click on the project, go to add, new item. So there is the hooks file, as you hopefully all be familiar with, and there's a feature file. You may notice that there isn't the count or the step definition file. And the reason for this is because it's easier to generate them from basically your feature file itself. So let's get straight into this define steps feature. So I'm just going to add a new feature file. Oh, it's already here. And I'll just call it something random, new. So oh, good. Brilliant. Why is this? Let's try that again.
The file seems to be there, so I don't know.
Yeah, but it hasn't generated.
Maybe the new is a reserved word.
Okay. Well, let's delete this and call it something different. So don't call your features new .feature. There you go. That's a little extra for you. Let's call it my name. There you go. I'm assuming Jordan isn't a reserved keyword, so
I'm not so sure, but let's see. Yeah, it seems so. Yeah, sorry, it's an Easter egg.
This must mean that I'm important in some way. Let's see what happens when we build. Oh, there we go. Okay, well, it generated the code behind, so I'm going to assume that this is normal, and apologies, I haven't actually seen this happen yet. So let's carry on and assume that everything is fine. So this is a new scenario, and I'm just going to quickly, in fact, I've already got these written down, so it'd be easier for me to just paste these in. Cool, and just like that, we have some scenarios. Cool. So back to the topic in hand, we want to define these steps. So one handy dandy way of doing that is, again, right clicking, and you can see this define steps option, or Control+BD for short. And you'll see this window, and we can pick and choose which steps we want to take. We can also see that it's going to generate a new class for us, and it will append the word step definitions to the name of the feature. So this is super cool. So you can also copy them to the clipboard if you want to put them in an existing class. But in this instance, let's create this, and there you go. Just like that, we have a new step definition file with all of the pending steps ready for us to go and put stuff in. A little bit of something I figured out yesterday, Gaspar, was if the step definition folder doesn't exist, then it does actually create the class at the root. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not sure if you're aware of this.
That was on purpose. So
okay, good.
Because not everyone is following this right. Great convention of having a step definitions folder, yeah. and we didn't want it to influence with that. But if you do have your project, we really encourage you to have this same convention that the template is creating, or that you see here. Have a features folder for the feature files, have a step definitions folder for the step definitions, have a support folder for everything else, and kind of like that.
Yeah, it was just me being a tester, and from previous life, I was playing around with this stuff, and I thought it was important to mention. So cool.
That's all good.
Yeah, it's just me being picky. Cool. So another thing is I'll just whip back to our feature file, and of course we just need to do a quick build, and then I'll showcase adding another step. So we'll have something else, and so this is probably quite important to mention. So this almost tripped me up. So what it will do is, if you create again, it will basically overwrite the existing step definition file. So if we're looking to just add something here, we want to make sure that we've checked all the ones we're looking to add, and then copy to clipboard. And then we can go ahead and manually just paste this skeleton code in here, just like this. So let me just showcase what it looks like if we don't do that. Do a build here. And this one's unbound. So if we define steps and then I click create, obviously we already have a class called Jordan step definitions. You will see this here, overwrite file, selected step definition, blah, 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 already exists. By overwriting existing file, you might lose your work. Do you want to overwrite your file? So this does give you a warning. Just be cautious of this, because if you've got a large file, then it could be irritating, but easy to fix.
And make Git commits as often as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we don't want to overwrite this. So that's cool. And one other thing that I will just mention is if you try and define steps that are, you know, when the file has already has everything defined, then you'll see this pop up here to say that all steps have been defined for this file already. So that's cool. So moving on then, unless I've missed anything, please shout anyone if I have. No, it looks good. Is the defined step definition usages, which is really cool. So if we go to the step definition file and we right click and come down to this section here, find step definition usages, and the shortcut is Control+B F. We can see we've obviously only got one binding, but this will show any files, any feature files that share this step. And you can navigate straight to them and do whatever it is you need to do, which is super cool. You know, I remember times past this being a bit of a problem and being somewhat annoying. So that's a super welcome feature for me. And moving on to the next feature is
just a small extension. So when you do the find step definition usages, there is another very handy item in the shortcut is that which you can use to if you click on that show the results in the output window.
Yes.
Probably you have seen that you want to review all the 10 different usage of that, and always coming back, always waiting, and just choosing the third one, choosing the fourth one is very hard. But with that button, basically just puts the links to the output window, so you can just double click on those things in the output window, and then you can just step them through one after the other. So if you just double click on one of the lines there that was displayed, then the Visual Studio will automatically whatever to the feature file line. So that's one thing. The other thing that I wanted to mention that Jordan was always mentioning the keyboard shortcuts. Basically now we wanted to make a more meaningful set of keyboard shortcuts. All of them is starting with the Control B. B stands for BDD, so that's how you remember. So, and the other letter is always related to what you want to do. So BD is define steps, BF is find step definition usages, and so on. So I mean, that was our take. Of course, the amount of available shortcuts is very limited already in Visual Studio.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, I overlooked the printing to the output window. So thanks for putting me up on it. Cool. Good. So that's it for the step definition usages. So that's super useful. The next one I want to talk about is the, I guess the error highlighting, we'll call it. I'm not sure if there's a more official term for it. But basically in your feature file, if there's some sort of issue, let's call this, no, this doesn't work as I expected it to.
Yeah, just change the van.
Oh, you mean this?
Yeah. Then because the first step is always meaningful. Just otherwise, it's just a document.
I see. Right. I see. Yes. Sure. Cool. So you can see that we have this red squiggly, and it shouts at you perfectly, telling you that there's something wrong here. A better example of this is, let me just paste the into this step definition file. So I will paste over this. So you can see we have two steps. This is a something and then parameterized, and then we have this is a given. I will just build this. And if we go back to the feature, then we should see, that's perfect, cool. So we see this ambiguous step. And this is super useful. Again, you can't really carry on without sorting this out or getting into a muddle, and it's quite clear where the issue resides. It tells you in this overlay here. And also navigating to the binding. So if we click this, goes to step definition, or press F12 if you're using the keyboard shortcut. You can see this very apparent orange question mark, and it's saying clearly that this is an ambiguous finding basically. So go ahead and do something about it basically is what it's saying. Cool. So that covers the warnings. There's other warnings. I won't go into detail, but just know that it will shout at you if it doesn't like something inside of the feature file. So that's super cool. Good stuff. So I'm gonna move on to the next topic, which is cucumber expressions. So I'll, again, before I carry on, it will just invite Gaspar to elaborate a little bit more on what cucumber expressions are.
Mm-hmm. So probably if you have used other kind of cucumber tools, then you might have heard about cucumber expressions. Basically, the background of the story is that we are using, and we have used for many years, regular expressions to make the matching between the step and the step definition. And regular expressions are generally good, and there is no problem with that. But probably you have also seen that, especially if your step is a little bit more complex, then the regular expression is also getting more and more complex, especially in C#, where you have to do also masking and double quotes. And so the things can be really messy, and especially if someone who is new to this model of testing comes to the project, they maybe not find very convenient with modifying or working with those regular expressions. And to overcome that, basically the Cucumber community wanted to figure out another alternative expression language, which is more specific or more targeting those the Gherkin step matching. And this is what is called a Cucumber expression. So Cucumber expression can be used in the same way how you are using regular expressions. And now you are seeing a nice example of a Cucumber expression. This is even a Cucumber expression test pad, so you can even play with that. And what you see here, that there are some number of flights in the from airport. Basically, this is a Cucumber expression, and what you can see there is that that the parameters, if you want to include parameters in a Cucumber expression, that can be done with this curly brace syntax, and you don't have to worry about the double quotes around the string parameters and many other things. So altogether, the Cucumber expressions are much more simpler. If you just scroll down, Jordan, then there are some other examples. If you just take this this boy name string in the more examples link, that's a little bit simpler one. Yeah, that one. So that's a very simple Cucumber expression, which is just including a string parameter. And as you can see in the expression, I just need to make curly brace string, and I can use double quotes for the name. I could also use single quotes also for the name. I don't need to change the expression, and you can express your step definitions in a simpler way.
Cool. Thank you very much, Gaspar. This is a super cool feature, and I think people will find this very, very beneficial. I know that I've had a lot of trouble with regular expressions in the past and trying to come up with one that works. So this makes things super easy. So with the context behind this, I'll talk about how you can use it. So for some clarity, Gaspar, to clear up some confusion, SpecFlow supports Cucumber expressions natively. What was it you said about there was something you said yesterday when I asked you.
Yeah. So you can already use Cucumber expressions with SpecFlow, but currently you have to add an additional NuGet package to be able to support that. So it's not part of the core SpecFlow yet. Probably maybe in the next version or one of the next version it will be. Right now there is an additional SpecFlow plugin that you have to add to be able to use that. And the plugin is called Cucumber expression.specflow. If you basically search for Cucumber expression, it will pop up for that. And and you have to choose the one which is matching to your SpecFlow version. So right now we are using 1.3.9, so that's why we are installing that one. And basically by that you are teaching SpecFlow to be able to understand Cucumber expressions. You have to know that Cucumber expressions are backwards compatible. So just because we have installed now this package, it doesn't mean that we cannot use regular expressions anymore. This system is kind of smart, so it realizes that for example, what you see on the line 10 is a regular expression and not a Cucumber expression. So it will be all fine. But now you have a chance to change that. You could change, for example, this dot star thing to curly brace int because it's a number. and now for this particular step, we are using a Cucumber expression. So that's basically the concept. But Visual Studio Extension is already prepared for that. So as you can see, just right now we have used Cucumber expressions, and the matching and the navigation is working fine. And actually, it also changes the behavior of the define step. I guess this is what you wanted to.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it does work. Yeah. I already had the step. I thought it was called something differently, but you can see that it works.
But that's also good what you did. Just make a define step, and what you can see that immediately the define step is already suggesting you a Cucumber expression pattern. Of course, you can change it back to your regular expression if you want, but
there we go. Yeah,
but
cool.
That's how it works.
Perfect. Good. So I think everyone will find that very useful, and it's probably worth talking about other typings. So you can use more complex typings, but you need step argument transformation, right, Gaspar?
Yes. So I mean, SpecFlow was anyway supporting type transformations with the step argument transformations. That also works with Cucumber expressions as well. It's even more intuitive, because if you want to have, for example, a color parameter, then into the curly brace you have to write the type name, and then from the expression it will be much clearly visible, or very clearly visible with what kind of parameter you work on. So that also works with Cucumber expressions, basically.
Cool, there we go. So that concludes all of the features that we're sharing. So maybe there's some more hidden ones, but yeah, that's all the content for today. So I guess that leads us on nicely to the Q&A. We're actually doing good for time, so we do have 15 minutes or so to answer the questions. So let's start with that. I think I will try and answer the questions, and then I'll pull on Gaspar for support, which is very likely. So Katharina, please go ahead.
Can you stop sharing your screen? Okay.
It might be useful for me to keep sharing the IDE.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to keep the sharing.
Okay.
Because...
Yeah. Okay. That's good to say. So the first question, is a rule description supported?
Where did I put it? In here. Good question. This is a description. I guess that means yes, right?
Yep, definitely.
There we go. So yes is the answer to that. Oh, this is to do with the steps, so ignore this. Yeah. Sorry, next question.
Is the plugin using the Gherkin parser from and the link to GitHub? Maybe you can open it.
This is the github.com/cucumber/common.
Yes.
Gaspar, is this one for you, I should think?
Yes, so this is using the official Gherkin parser, just like SpecFlow as well. So yeah.
Oh, nice and easy there. Next question.
Yeah. Is a rule background supported?
So the rule background is a little bit tricky. The rule background not supported yet. Basically, it's I think maybe in the extension you can already type it in, so it doesn't show you a syntax error, maybe, I don't know, but SpecFlow doesn't support the rule background yet, so yeah, you have to wait for that a little bit until SpecFlow provides the full support for that. But be careful with the rule background. So the problem with the rule background is that you can very easily make very complex scenarios when it's very hard to track what is happening after what. But there will be a support for that, but not yet.
Cool, thanks, Gaspar.
Okay, the next question. So, wait. Okay. Any improvements on GWT interlicense in large projects, perhaps scope filtering or any other goodies? Large amounts of GWT steps make this piece of interlicense cumbersome and eventually turned off completely.
So generally, the IntelliSense is a little bit more robust than the other one was. So I would really encourage you to try out how this new extension work with a larger set of things. There is no functional, I think from the functionality perspective, it works similarly. So there is no big change from this perspective, but it should be more robust. Please try and report if you still see some problems. Now with this code base, we have better chances to fix such kind of issues. One thing that what is important to highlight though, which is not well known by many people, that if you start typing your steps, and I'm just asking Jordan to make an end step, let's say after this then. Now you don't have to start typing the steps from the first word. So you don't have to start with the D word. You can just randomly just write down those keywords that you remember. Let's say that you remember result and B, okay? And you just type in result and B, doesn't matter which order. Basically, the extension will filter the possible step definitions and choose the one that contains those keywords in any order. So that makes a little bit the editing experience easier. So that's what I can suggest. And the other thing which we haven't covered in this webinar, because it's a different topic, but it's somewhat related, that I really encourage you to try the SpecFlow Plus. Now, what is the name of that? SpecFlow Plus Living Dog Generator tool, which is able to generate a nice HTML report, which also has a kind of report for what kind of step definition you haven't used, and from that you can also get a little bit of help for that.
Okay, so the next one, will the new extension only be available to Visual Studio 2022, or also supports older versions?
So sorry, Gaspar.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so obviously we have the current extensions for 2017, 2019, and obviously now 2022. So I think probably the question you're asking is, are the other versions going to work like this? And I guess the answer to that is no.
The answer is no. However, if you really miss a few of these features, then basically I mentioned earlier that the dev room, which was the showcase for this extension, or is available for 2019. So if you really need to use, for example, the rule keyword and have to use the 2019, then that would be the alternative. Now the 2022 version has a little bit more features than dev room had. So obviously, if you can, it makes sense to use this one. But that's kind of alternative path or something like that. The current official SpecFlow extensions for 2019 and 2017 will not receive this, for example, the rule keyword support. That's kind of sure.
Okay, will we have plus minus to expand or collapse data tables to avoid too much scrolling on the Gherkin files when you have large data tables?
Good question. I don't actually know.
As far as I remember, yes, but I also don't remember fully.
Oh, that is not the. Come on, keyboard, play ball. Oh, there we go. Why? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just frantically typing. Oh, there is.
Yeah, and just copy this, just complete that, just make one more field and copy it to after one of this, because this is not a data table. This is an example table. Just
sure.
Paste it to one of these after one of these steps. Oh. Yes, we have this collapsing there as well. Yes.
Nice, cool. There you go. I'm learning more about this extension as we go through. Cool, good. There's your answer. That's nice. I like that. Cool. Next question.
Maybe a little off topic, but correctly. My dev team is not able to use spec runner in Rider. When it will be supported with XUnits, they are kind of limited.
Okay. I haven't personally used them together. Is it just out? Is it not supported at all? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We might have to get back to you on this one. So we'll take an extract of the Q&A and we'll answer this afterwards. Sorry.
Okay. Is format document supported? It was not yet in dev room.
Like Control K and D, right?
Yes. Yeah, it is. It is.
So let's just mess some of this up. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Yes. Yep. There we go.
Yes, and even you can fine tune the different formatting rules so that how much indentation you want to use, whatever. We will have it somewhere in the documentation. It's basically it will work with editor configs. Not there.
It's not in here. Okay. Cool.
It's in the editor config file. You can influence how many, whether, for example, the end steps you want to have a further indentation and so on. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so does the rule support also continue into SpecFlow Plus living doc generation?
I wonder if it will appear as text.
I think right now it just ignores that, as far as I remember, but definitely I know that there is a feature request for that in the community forum. So definitely this is something that the team is aware of. But I don't know the status.
I will also double check this and get back to you.
Okay, so what's the difference between rule and scenario?
This is definitely one for you, Gashwa.
So basically a rule is just a grouping. So rule doesn't introduce any kind of additional test. So rule is a grouping for the scenarios, and it's an optional thing. So you don't have to group your scenarios into rules. Basically, with the rules, you can group those scenarios together that are related to the same requirement, same business rule.
Thanks. The next question is, are there any improvement on new features on the Living Doc report?
No, there's nothing new since the last product webinar that we did.
Okay. Little off topic. Why SpecFlow keep asking for license information even when the user is activated already in the server?
It shouldn't do. So if you're using the, presumably you're talking about the runner. Maybe ask which product you're using. But if it's the runner, then once you're registered, you shouldn't need to register. And in fact, the same is true for any of the other products, right? Yeah. So maybe just expand on what issue you're having, and maybe you need to raise a support ticket so I can have a conversation with you.
Okay, I'm using .NET 5. Is it required to upgrade it to .NET 6 to run Visual Studio 2022?
Absolutely not. And this is a great question. So absolutely not. Basically, you can use the Visual Studio 2022 even for .NET Core 2.1 projects as well. So it's absolutely working backwards compatible. It's in another way around. So .NET 6 will only work with the 2022, but the earlier versions of SpecFlow work with here as well. Yeah.
Yep, as demonstrated.
So basically, myself, I'm now using the 2022 for all of my projects because it just works and it's a little bit nicer than the 19 was.
Yeah, and I guess being so close to release, it's super stable, the preview version, isn't it? So
it's quite stable. I wouldn't say super stable, but it's quite stable.
Cool.
Another off-topic question: does SpecRunner Plus is working on .NET 5.6?
SpecFlow Plus Runner works on .NET 5. Yes, I think it works on .NET 5. But it doesn't work on .NET 6. Some of you keen-eyed people may have seen it missing from the drop-down list when we selected .NET 6 as the target framework. We do have in fact, I've got a link to the feature request somewhere. So if you'd like to see it, then please upvote it. I'm going to frantically go to, I'll get the link, specflow.org. Yeah, we have a feature request for it. So I anticipated this question would appear. So here's a link to the feature request, and if you want to see it, then go ahead and upvote it. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Yeah.
And that another thanks. Okay, thank you. And that's all.
Cool, perfect. So let me just go on,
At the
Shannon.
beginning, there were some questions about the rename step and the parameters. Can you demonstrate it, like to rename a...
or in chat?
Go on, Shandor, just tell me on the fly, what was the question?
There were some questions about the rename steps and the parameters. How does it work? Can we add, remove, reorder? So can you open up a rename step dialog?
I can read it. I found it.
You need to build it first.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Sorry. Yeah.
So the question: can we also use renaming combined with parameters? For example, I want to rename a normal line to something with a parameter because I know I will reuse it.
So I'm going to assume that it will change the regular expression / cucumber expression, but I guess it won't add a parameter to the method. I'm going to assume. Let's test it. So this one already has one.
Or add the parameter.
Yeah, in fact, let me just create a new one and something which doesn't have a parameter. And then we can rename it or create it first, sorry, is what I mean. And then we can rename it just because this doesn't currently have a parameter, so it's more useful. We just build this so it binds. And then we can rename it, add a parameter, and see what happens. Let's use the cucumber expression. Okay. Non-parameter parts cannot contain expression operators.
I think that's what Shandor wanted to get to, so that the current version of the rename, you cannot add or remove or change the order of the parameters. So that's basically you can use to change the text in between. Basically, what we wanted to do with the rename step is making some sort of progressive solution, and that was the first one that was meaningfully achievable. But maybe later on we will also think about how to deal better with parameters, but that introduces a lot of tricky things. How to recognize if you have changed the order, what happens if you just introduce a parameter type that doesn't match to the existing parameters. So it just introduces a lot of other problems that it didn't want it to deal with. And basically that's why right now you can change the text, but you cannot change the parameters.
Cool. I didn't actually know that. So
this is what I wrote in my answer, that you are getting an error message if something cannot be done according to the parameters.
Cool. Good catch, whoever that was who asked the question. So cool. So I think, is there any more from the chat that may have been missed, or are we all good?
That's it.
Yep.
Okay, good.
That's it.
Cool. So, of course, if anyone does have any additional questions, then feel free to fire an email or a support query, and I can get back to you. So that's it then. So I'm going to hand back to you, Katerina. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Those remaining questions, I will find out the answers, and we will include them in the email that we send with the recording, which we will also be emailing around. I'm not making a point about that. Cool.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So we also prepared a few code project examples, a bunch of it. So Jordan, can you paste the links? So visit it, give it a try, and we hope you will find it useful. And before we end, I would like to draw your attention to our Community Hero project. The idea is that you can submit your contributions to us. It can be GitHub contribution, video, text, article, everything actually. And we will review it, and the winning contributions will get $25 Amazon voucher from us. And thank you for joining this webinar. Please follow us in social media, our Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube channels, like our posts, comment our posts, and share it. Thanks a lot, and hopefully to see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.